And all of a sudden I get to a place where I'm making, $500 to $700 a year as a snowboarder, which, in snowboarding, that's decent. It's kind of where you end up, but it's not pro basketball, football, or baseball. And then I got to take half of it, give it back to the government. I'm just like, because I was self-employed. I'm getting taxed at 50%.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I've sacrificed my whole life and I'm risking my life. And finally I make it to a point where I'm making decent money and I gotta get 50% of this back. It just seemed like there was something missing.
That'll change your worldviews quick. All right, welcome back, Winning Wealthers. It's your boy G-Money, Jeff, and I'm here with B-Rock.
Brock Mogensen.
I just like saying B-Rock. You got to introduce yourself like that sometime. Brock, we've got an awesome guest today. Why don't you do the intro on him?
So I'm super excited. We got Dan Brisse on the pod today. So he's a former professional snowboarder, 2 times X Games gold medalist, and is now a real estate investor. So I'm super interested to talk about the story of how that all happened. I was a huge snowboarder my whole life, so I've followed your career as a professional snowboarder, and we got this book. I was super excited. And only kind of recently found out you're now in real estate. So I was like, this guy would be perfect to talk to. So let's start off with...
First of all, this is a huge thing for us. This is a milestone for us. Only person that's ever been on here that's got a gold medal, or 2 for that matter.
First professional athlete too.
Fucking A.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right. So let's talk about like a little bit of your backstory, right? Like how, your professional career, how you pivoted over to real estate. Let's start there.
Yeah. So I grew up middle class, and I had this, at that time, a big dream, this far off dream coming from central Minnesota. And so moved to Salt Lake City after I graduated from high school, laser focused on wanting to make this dream become a reality of being a professional snowboarder. And I worked odd jobs, everything you could imagine under the sun. Didn't have a car when I first moved out to Salt Lake. I basically rode with a buddy, and I was biking to Blockbuster and Payway and TGI Fridays over a course of 3 or 4 years in Salt Lake. And finally I got to a point with my riding where a good buddy is like, you got to go to a contest, you got to compete. And there was one in Aspen, Colorado called the Aspen Open. And he's like, you should go. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to go, but I don't have the money. And B, how am I realistically going to get from Salt Lake to, without a car? He's like, I'll drive you, I'll pay for your fee, let's go. So throws me in the car. We head there to Aspen, and there's like 275 kids. Anyone, an open, if for any of your listeners that don't know what it is, anyone can enter. You think you're decent at any sport like golf or tennis, snowboarding, you go to an open, you pay your money, and you get 2 runs. And if you make it, do well in your 2 runs, you go to finals. And I ended up qualifying 7th on the first day. And I'm like, that's decent. Out of 250 kids. But at the end of the day, if you're not on the podium, they just don't care. These brands aren't really going to get behind you. So came back the next day. I don't know what happened to those other 6 guys. They almost have fallen, but I hit my run and I ended up winning this contest. And it was kind of the beginning of my snowboarding career. All my brands that I was riding for the last 5 years that gave me a board or 2 a year started to take note. And we're like, hey, this kid's actually got some potential. And from that point on, I started to get invited to professional events and traveled, and was really put in a place of more opportunity to compete. And I had brands paying for me. So ended up having a run that was, pretty, I guess, a dream come true. Like I actually had a full on professional snowboarding career, traveled the world and rode for the brands that I, fraught that in high school. Like, God, if I could just be a rider for Volcom or Capita or, these brands. And I ended up signing contracts with them. And that, like you guys said in the intro, the highlight of my career was 2 X Games gold medals, a couple silver medals. What really, transitioned to real estate was just fear, like, what the hell am I going to do after I'm done being a snowboarder that's realistically going to give me this kind of freedom, this kind of passion, this kind of excitement. So that's where real estate came in.
Man, there's a lot to unpack there. First, I think you said Blockbuster. I'm not sure Brock's ever even been in one of those.
Yeah, I grew up going to those.
Yeah, I don't know. And then you said you're from central Minnesota. Is that like Rochester area or?
No, I grew up in a little town called Richmond, but it's close-ish to St. Cloud, about an hour and a half northwest of Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Got it. Midwestern guy. I like that. We're in Wisconsin, so neighbors there. That's awesome.
That's right. Cheeseheads. Yeah,
That's
I hated
right.
You guys. Still do.
Go Pack Go. Tonight, too, by the way. I don't know when this will air, but this is the Packers play the Eagles in Brazil tonight, so I'm fired up. That's where I'm going from here. But
so I just have to say, I mean, that story's awesome. Like I personally, right, like I moved out to Salt Lake City as well. I went to University of Utah, and like I had the same vision where I was like, I'm going to go out there and ride and, do something in snowboarding. And I fell very short, right? Like I was above average rider.
No gold
but it's
medal
like to be able to get to that point, I mean, in any professional sport's amazing, right? So it's hats off on that for sure. So let's talk about a little bit. So your transition, right, from being a professional snowboarder, that was your life, to, okay, now that career is kind of ending. What am I going to do next? Like, how did that whole thought process go about?
Yeah, that was honestly terrifying. Like my whole life from age of 12 to 33, 34, like I identified as I'm a professional snowboarder. That's who I am. That's Dan Brisse. I'm a pro snowboarder. And, when you're an athlete in your career and you see it's going to come to an end, you're like, who am I now? And you feel like you're losing your identity, part of who you are. So I saw some brutal stuff from my peers, guys who, were my heroes in high school. And I'm watching all these videos. I got to know them in Salt Lake, and I started riding with them, and I started to hang out with them like we're homies. It was crazy. And then you see their careers being 5-10 years in front of me, making the money they did, having all of the support they had, just come to a complete halt. And it was brutal, like losing their homes, divorce, drug addiction. I mean, one guy got paid out $2 million from one of his brands, traveled the world for 2 years, came back with tattoos everywhere, and said money ruined him. And seeing that firsthand scared me. So I was like, I got to find a way to do something different, because if these guys who were this big had a career that long and it all wound down into a tragic ending from my perspective, what am I going to do different? How am I actually going to be in a different spot? So I started reading every book I could get my hands on when it came to money. And that was just really a fear. Fear was motivating. And so I came across a bunch of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad product. Yeah. And started reading these books and started figuring out, hey, what can I do with the money I'm making? I live below my means. One thing I think more athletes really got to hear and got to do is, if you're making X amount of money, live on 10, 20% of it and get super smart with the rest, because it's not going to last forever. And when it's gone, you just missed this window that's so special.
So as you started researching these different avenues, right? 'Cause there's a bunch of different avenues you could go at that point. What drew you to real estate?
Yeah, for me, it was, I wanted a real asset because currency can be manipulated and created. I started reading about how money can destroy nations and the creation of currency. And we're seeing it more and more now. Like, it's happening. You're seeing it. There's a divide between the people that know what to do with their currency and the people that don't. And it's separating us, and it's going to be worse. It's going to get worse, because that's how, when you get late stage 5 of the debt cycle, like we're in right now at the U.S., you can read Ray Dalio's book, Changing World Order. He goes into detail on all this. He's a huge data guy. He started Bridgewater and Associates.
For sure.
And so you start seeing the future. And so I wanted to be in something that was real. Like, I can touch this. It's always going to be a store of value, no matter what happens to our currency. I wanted passive income. I wanted money flowing in no matter what. Like, I love snowboarding. Like, it was everything. It was my passion. But if I stopped snowboarding, I stopped getting paid. And that just, I was like, God, that just doesn't sit well with me. Like, what can I do to create a stream of income that comes in for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, no matter what I do? And so that was a huge driver for me. And then also depreciation. Growing up in middle class Minnesota, I made probably $5 to $10 grand a year max. Like, that's what I was making. I'm telling you, I was broke. Like, I didn't have any money in my bank account. I was zero. And all of a sudden I get to a place where I'm making, $500 to $700 grand a year as a snowboarder, which, in snowboarding, that's decent. It's kind of where you end up, but it's not pro basketball, football, or baseball. And then I got to take half of it, give it back to the government. I'm just like, because I was self-employed. I'm getting taxed at 50%.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I've sacrificed my whole life, and I'm risking my life. And finally I make it to a point where I'm making decent money, and I got to get 50% of this back. It just seemed like there was something missing. So
that'll
I was
change
on a
your
mission
worldviews quick.
Understand that better.
So what year was it when you made that decision? Like, I'm going to invest in real estate.
I bought my first property in 2012, and luckily the cycle, I was at the right time. You really couldn't do wrong at that time. You just came out of the Great Recession. I didn't really know what the hell was going on at the time. But as long as you bought something in real estate and it was a little bit of cash flow with the right debt, you're just chucking darts, and boom, you had a success. And so first 3 or 4 deals I bought just ended up doing really well because of the timing of the purchase.
How did you structure those first deals? Like, did you get into raising private capital, or you had money set aside at the time from snowboarding? Like how did you structure your first deals?
Yeah, first deals, it was all me, solo. I just literally, made what I could as a snowboarder, paid the tax I had to pay, saved every penny I could, and invested it into. I bought a duplex, and I bought a nineplex, and I bought a 24 unit deal and a 20 unit deal, and just kept buying these small deals on my own. And then I, got to a point where, how much time does it take to save 100K or 200K or 400K? Like, it takes a long time. And like, there's these deals that I see, I'm like, man, that's a good deal. If I could buy it, I don't have the money. You start to get to a point where you're like, I don't care how much money you've got, you're gonna run out eventually. And so we eventually realized we needed to raise capital, and if we could find an asset that was valuable and it was giving me a great return, why not bring 3, 5, 10 people along with me, and we can all do well. Yeah, I'm going to take a little percentage of it because I'm doing the work and finding the deal. But you in your profession, you got idle cash, you're looking for a place to own a real asset. Here's an opportunity. So my now business partner, one of my lifelong friends, he was a snowboarder. He was kind of on the path of becoming a pro. He didn't end up making it as a pro snowboarder, but lifelong buddy came out and visited me in 2015, and he was on the path to buying 100 single family homes. And I just suggested, I'm like, hey, we should buy an apartment together. And we did that and bought a couple more, and then we started our company in 2017.
So and just to give listeners perspective, based on what I looked at your website, your company right now, Granite Towers Equity Group, is at about 3,000 units under management?
Yeah, 3,250. We just closed on a deal
awesome.
like a week ago.
Congratulations.
We closed on
so do we actually week. Yeah. So so that's about a 12-year period from when you said I'm getting into real estate to now you're managing over 3,000 units. Like how does that happen?
Yeah, I think it's the same way any goal that I've seen, and I can't speak for anybody else, but my life, when you have very clear, laser focused determination, things change, and they can change quick, and it doesn't feel like anything's changing quick. It feels like you're in a grind. Like on my come up as a snowboarder for the first 5 years, nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared. I was just doing it because I love to do it. And then after 5 years of being in the game, I'm like, damn, there's pro snowboarders doing this. They're getting paid to do this. What's the difference between them and me? And it's really not that much, other than, do you have a burning desire, and will you break down anything in your way and just not quit? And so it's the same thing, I think, with real estate. What do you want? Where's your end goal? When I was younger, I set a fairly sizable passive income goal, and it needed this type of trajectory to, get there. So we're not there yet. And I think right around 10,000 doors is kind of where you'll see that number hit. And so that's really our first stop. And I don't know if we'll go past that or not, but that's what Mike and I are focused on. And it's less about the doors, and it's just more about, passive income, and what can you do with the money you're making to, either you want a lifestyle or you want to give back.
Amen. So you kind of touched on what I was going to ask next, but I'm very, very interested in the parallels of what it takes to become a professional athlete, then translating over to running a very successful company. And so, like, is there habits or routines or just an overall you touched on the mindset a bit about setting a goal and doing whatever it takes to get there. But I'd love to get your perspective on sort of the parallels from your time as a professional athlete and getting to that point, and then applying that sort of approach to running and growing a business.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, when I'm looking back, what are the parallels is you got to have a clear outcome of where you're headed, a clear picture in your mind. Like, this is success. And it's not vague. It's very clear. For me, when I wanted to be a pro snowboarder, I was really clear. Like, I wanted to be one of the top guys, not just a pro snowboarder. I wanted to be in the covers of magazines, right? And like, I want to be winning X Games medals. I want to be on, in the videos that are the biggest videos. Otherwise, you're not really there. And, I was driven also by, I didn't come from a lot, like I said. And, my parents worked hard, but they didn't just have the means. So I was help to provide for them. So, for me, it's clear outcome. What's your goal? Where are you headed? And see that in your mind's eye over and over again. And as you take steps day by day, month by month, year by year, and you track down this clear outcome in your mind, your confidence will go up. You'll gain confidence, and you will start to gain momentum, and people will feel your energy. and something happens. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to put it to exact words, but people want to get on the train and they want to go with you. And so same thing with real estate, you know, like when I started buying my first properties, like it was just me and a book, you know, like, and then there's another book, and then there's another book, and then there's another deal. And then there's still no one around. Like it's just me and these couple deals trying to figure it out, getting lucky. A little bit of luck's involved at times, I feel like. I mean, that's just the way it is, you know, like same with snowboarding. Like I got a little bit lucky at times. I had some shitty experiences too, some big unlucky experiences, but I think just something with just a laser focus, relentless, you know, problems are going to happen, guaranteed. You're going to be up against the wall at times, guaranteed. It happened many times in my snowboarding career. We've got a couple of deals that we're challenged with right now. And it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to fold, or are you going to figure it out and get the lessons and be better from it? So that's
Man,
it.
that's all awesome. I love that. And I totally agree that the path to success is not a straight line, right? And that's in anything. If you want to be a pro athlete or build a business or do whatever it is.
Which one do you think, let's say like excitement and difficulty, if you wake up on a day-to-day basis, looking back at when you were as a pro snowboarder to what you're doing now, what did you like comparing those?
Man, excitement level, I would say probably snowboarding was more exciting for me. Difficulty level,
I mean, shit, that makes
I don't know
sense.
yet, because
X Games snowboarder, that's like, that's peak excitement, right? Like,
yeah. And building this real estate company has been exciting as well. It's just, it's a little different in that, I don't know. It's just not quite, maybe I was younger too, you know, when I'm 13 to 30 years old, I've got a whole different set of emotions, and maybe I would feel differently if I was building a company like this at that age too. I don't know. But, it's been an interesting ride on both journeys, and I feel like I'm just in the beginning stages for our real estate company. That's the part that's most exciting, I'd say, for us, is there's no limits, you know, and there's nothing stopping me from doing this till I'm 80 or 90, you know, and so that's pretty cool.
We talk about that all the time, and it's funny, a lot of the things that you're saying are very, very close to the stuff that we've talked about plenty of times on this show. But I guess I want to go back to the vision thing, because I'm big into that too. I think people should have, if you're a goal-oriented person, you should have a vision board. And you know, I try to make it a point to look at my sort of, you know, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, or 10-year vision, and every morning basis, and just kind of like seed it into my head. I'm trying to look at more ways to sort of like meditate about it. I guess I'm just curious, like, how do you plant that vision in your head? Is there anything that you do, or are you just wired that way?
Gosh, for snowboarding, the vision, it developed over time. I didn't learn about a snowboard one day and be like, I want to be a pro snowboarder the next. So that vision developed through months and years of just having a really great time, and then honing in and dialing that exact goal or outcome in was further going down the path. And that's where, you know, I think first, if I go really back to things, I just wanted to compete in Minnesota, and I wanted to film a video part in Minnesota, and then it evolved. And I think that's kind of how our real estate has gone too. I didn't set out, you know, exactly with a plan of this is how it's going to go. And is 10,000 units the final? I didn't know 10,000 would be kind of where I need to be in order to hit a passive income goal. I don't know. Sometimes I just pick things in my mind and get super attached to them, and then I get excited about it. I wish I had a better answer for you.
No, I think it's still interesting just to kind of understand everyone's different, and there's so many ways to do it and think about it. I just know that I need to like try every day to focus on something, so that that's just the way my mind's wired. I get shiny balls.
I think some people are kind of born with like being wired with the ambitious, but that doesn't like get you through your whole career, right? I think you always have to have the bigger purpose of why you're trying to do it, and
fear as a motivator.
Goals, 100%.
You know, I'd say something else that hits hard is just also staying with it. It seems like the times when I've been around guys like in the snowboarding industry on the way up, I moved out west with 5 guys. They were all better than me, and they just didn't stick with it. And that's not to say they should have stuck with it, because maybe they just didn't have the same desire or goal. But if you want something to happen, you got to stay. You got to just be relentless for a long period of time.
Staying power. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit today, like where the business is and where it's going, right? So you guys are buying multifamily as your core. Are you looking nationwide? Is there certain markets you're looking in, or what does that look like right now?
Yeah, we're only Dallas, Fort Worth, and Nashville, Tennessee for multifamily deals. We have just recently been rolling out our first triple net lease deal. It's a car wash. It's totally different asset class, but we're working with a buddy who has done 25 of these deals. And like a lot of our investors, they love multifamily. It's great, but the depreciation's been hammered with it sunsetting each year from 100 to 80 to 60, and so that's been hitting up our investors and me, and also multifamily can be extremely profitable, but it's not always guaranteed passive income. So we're just rolling out a second asset class with this gentleman who we've known for like 20 years, and he's done remarkable. So but our main focus is still value add multifamily.
Okay.
That's awesome. We started in value add multifamily, and I'm still very bullish on multifamily. I mean, there's a lack of affordable housing, obviously, but I always tell people, God bless the triple net lease. When we discovered that and sort of got more and more into these commercial deals, and then now we're solely focused on industrial real estate. There's a lot of things that the insulation from inflation and a lot of things about it that really excite me, but I'm still a big fan of multifamily as well.
Are you starting to see opportunity come about more recently, or what are you seeing right now in the market?
Yeah, the last 2 years for most everybody has been brutal. Multifamily, no question, peaked in early 2022. Like you can look back and pretty much, boom, there was the peak. And I think, and a lot of folks are thinking that it has bottomed. And so these next 2 years, for those that are savvy, the elite, the top of the top, they're out buying. And I think you got a window of time, it's a 2010, 11, 12 kind of period right here we're entering. And cycles are the name of the game in any asset class. And I'm not going to sit here and say I know exactly where we are in the cycle, but I have a good sense that I know about where we might be based off of the data we're getting looking over the next 5 to 6 months and based on what we just gone through. And if you're missing this buying opportunity these next 2-3 years, I think you're going to be missing, that bottom pricing. And, right now you're seeing multifamily at a 20 to 35% discount. And so, excuse me, so sorry. So when you have that take place where you have that big of a discount in 2 years, you're in a situation where if this is what you do, you gotta be there. You gotta be buying.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. I think I was talking to someone the other day I was in a similar business as us, and I was talking and saying, well, what are you buying right now? And he's like, oh, there's no good deals out there. We're just kind of sitting and waiting. And it's kind of like, I think in any market cycle, there's going to be ups and downs, right? Like you're saying, but like there's always deals to be had in any market cycle. It just depends on, in certain market cycles, there's a lot more.
You got to mitigate a lot of risk.
You got to mitigate risk. But one thing I always talk about and like to follow is like, follow what the giants are doing, right? Like Blackstone and those kind of groups, like, what are they doing, right? They have hundreds of analysts that are researching the data. And if they're out raising billions of dollars right now and buying billions of dollars worth of properties, probably makes sense to you to do the same thing, right?
Yeah, I just think it's important to stay in the game because the more that you're on the field, I played football back in the day, so I'm sure you got a lot of snowboarding analogies. I always have the football ones, but if you're on the field and you're playing and you're looking at deals, you're in the market every single. You're going to be able to find deals quicker than someone that's like, I'm out of the game for 23 and 24. I'll get back in 2025 or 20, whatever, right? I think you're not going to see the opportunities. You're not going to have the relationships. You're not going to be able to capitalize as quickly as the folks that are actually still evaluating buying. We've bought 4 deals this year. Last year, I think we bought 2. But, so it's certainly, or maybe even 1 in 2023. Yeah, it's certainly slowed down a ton, but we were still actively evaluating these deals and having these meetings and trying.
Well, and like you said, the relationships. Like if you just pause and say I'm out for the year, like bankers and brokers are key in getting deals done, right? So if you just disappear for a year and you come back, they're going to be like,
momentum's a real thing,
right?
too.
Yeah,
and so we just feel like our business, we've stair-stepped it up, and then it felt like it plateaued, and now it's just kind of in another growth phase. And I would attribute that to us being so active even last year, trying to get deals done.
Yep.
So what? Tell us about your buy box. Like, I love the markets that you're in. I was just in Nashville a couple weeks ago, and I was like, it's the first time I've been there in like 8 years, and I'm like, holy shit, this is a lot of growth. I think the fundamentals for both Texas and Tennessee, from a macroeconomic perspective, make a lot of sense, and microeconomic perspective for that matter. But what about what's the ideal deal that you're looking for?
Yeah, we're kind of in that $20 to $40 million purchase price, and we're in that $10 to $20 million capital raise. We're looking for submarkets that have extreme pent-up demand. Like you're getting into a position where when you go shop the comps, everyone's 96, 98, 100% occupied, and there's no place for everyone to go. And ideally, you're buying a product that can't be built. So you put yourself in a scenario with the right debt, the right leverage based on your exit strategy, based on your business plan, based on the market cycle, based off of all of the other deals you've owned. You come into a position where you have a lot of wind at your sails to very likely do well. Nothing's guaranteed, right? Everything we're doing here is an investment. But with that knowledge and experience, it greatly increases your ability to find something that's actually going to make sense. So we're always bringing in, $5,000 to $15,000 a door to upgrade the property, whether we need it or don't need it. It's there. Our leverage is anywhere between 60 to max 75% leverage. Most of it's just non-recourse fixed debt for 7 years, and that's really kind of it. And it's just comparing what do we have and how's this going to be compared to what we already have, and based on our best performers, does this replicate that model or not?
Very sharp. I'll tell you what, if I was writing an LP check these days, I'd be sending some money your way, because that all resonates. It's all very similar to what we're doing. On a smaller scale, but working our way there.
So those are big equity raises, right? You're talking about raising $10 million. How did you, first off, what's your investor base? Is it kind of individuals, or how do you go about building that to be able to raise that much money?
It's a combination. Yeah, most are individuals. You might have some folks that pooled LLCs, but yeah, it's just individual relationships. A lot of networking events. We have a podcast that we produce. We do around 140 or 150 episodes. Just being in the right room with the right people, connecting with the right people, and just doing the business well. And I think the best thing you can possibly do is you buy a deal, perform. And just if you perform well, people will talk for you, and if you don't perform well, people will talk for you. So. It's a very cruel business in the sense that every month you got a report card. We buy a deal, we create a pro forma. This is where we're going to put income to. Here's where we're going to put our expenses to. Here's our CapEx budget. Every month, did you hit it or did you miss it? Did you win or did you lose? We won on that deal, sweet. We lost on that deal. And the investors, month after month, see you winning over and over again or losing, and it's going to sway what they say and where how quickly your wealth compounds. And when you're exiting deals successfully, you just have way more capital. Now with your investors, they put in 50, you give them 100K back. Now it's like, dude, thanks for my 50. I got 100.
Let's put it back in.
Total now with the 50. Yeah, I got to put it back in, or I got a tax bill. So I think that's a big part of it too.
Now, very eloquently put. So I think we're getting ready to wrap up here. I know.
I got a closing question.
Let's hit him with it. You've been thinking about it.
I've been thinking about this.
Dreaming about this.
So I want to, and maybe we will splice in the actual video here. If you look back on your snowboarding career, what was your favorite clip or trick that you did throughout your whole career?
God, that's tough. I would say probably the clip I'm most excited about was we were in Alaska, up in Haines, Alaska, as Torstein Horgamo and Dustin Craven and Gigi was there, I think, rough. And we were hitting the kicker it was all heli. And it was this really amazing, basically step down gap where it dropped a good 50, 60, 70 feet. And this landing was just super, super steep. And we were probably a good 40 feet in the air at the high point, maybe 50 off the kicker. And when you landed, it was just touchdown powder. Didn't even have to bend your knees. And it was shot from the heli. It was just a cool angle, So I'd say, looking back, that was the most feel-good kicker I've ever hit, and it was one of the biggest jumps I've ever hit. I had to pick an urban spot, or probably be one of these one of these roof gaps just because it ended up being so monumental for folks.
We'll definitely splice some of those in there because I've seen those all you're talking about, and they're badass.
Hell yeah, it's badass. I had to think. He said heli. That means helicopter. I haven't gone. That ain't me, but
all right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. For all the listeners, so check out his website. Granite Towers Equity Group is your company name. Is it granitetowersequitygroup.com?
Yep.
Check that out. Dan Brisse on IG. Watch his content there, and appreciate having you on.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on, gentlemen. I love what you got going here.
Thank you very much.